We will now begin the expert dialogue. This dialogue will be moderated by Dr. Chen Fangyu from Suzhou University. So, Dr. Chen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fangyu Chen, Suzhou University Assistant Professor of Political Science. I'm also Editor-in-Chief of US Taiwan Watch. So we have very condensed time here, and we have many experts here. So I would just directly start. Let me just quickly go through our panelists here. The first one on my left-hand side is Dr. Roger Liu. And then we have Dr. Renato Cruz de Castro from the Philippines. And then we have Dr. Hu Qiuping from Malaysia. And then we have Dr. Yuan Baochuang from Vietnam. And then we have Dr. Sana Hashmi from India. And we have Dr. Benjamin Bradon from Paris online. Hello? Is it? It's here? Hello? So sorry for letting you wait. Is he online? Okay, so can we just begin? So this is an expert dialogue. So I would invite each expert to have very difficult job to have 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, it's only 3 to 5 minutes of overall statements on maybe the most urgent priority of the security challenges in your region or in your country, and how is it so salient for the audience, maybe the domestic or international audience for your region. Okay, so it's very general statement of 3 to 5 minutes. And can we invite Dr. Bradon first, because thank you for waiting, and we delayed. So please. No voice. No voice. Still no voice from you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yeah, please.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having me today. And well, I'm not in Paris, I'm in Munich, but it's pretty much the same. It's 6 a.m. here, or in a few minutes. And I'm happy to contribute today with my research. Would you like me to introduce myself before going up with the content?
Please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So, well, a few people in the room know me, but I have been working as a consultant in strategy and innovation in the past for about 12 years. And after what, I worked for Airbus in the maritime surveillance domain. And after that, over the past 3 years, I conducted a PhD in geopolitics, specializing in China's asymmetric warfare in the South China Sea. So my core topic is very much the South China Sea, but of course, one body of water being connected to another. I extended my research also to the Taiwan Strait and the East China Sea and the Yellow Sea. And the core of my research clearly has 3 dimensions that I believe are of interest for the audience today. The first one was meant at clarifying what it is today that we observe at sea in the South China Sea and the other near seas of China. Second of all, what is the impact of these phenomena? And third of all, what could be done to help deterring these phenomena? So first, and actually it's interesting for me to intervene in that panel, because I followed with great interest what was said in the previous panels, and especially about gray zone tactics, gray zone warfare, hybrid warfare, and other things. So the first part of my work was very much about clarifying what do we mean in the 21st century when we use words such as A2AD, area denial, hybrid warfare, or gray zone tactics. The second point was also to say that we don't have just one of these in such a body of water and such other type of phenomena in another body of water, but there's a form of continuity. And also what I call asymmetric warfare serves as some kind of a umbrella term that encompasses the 3 conceptual silos that I just mentioned. And my research demonstrates that not just in the South China Sea, you have a coordination and accumulation of these 3 types of phenomena, mostly at the initiative of one power, which is China. And the list of the phenomena that I tried to compile currently has reached 300 different phenomena including hybrid warfare, gray zone tactics, and hybrid warfare. And this list is growing in number, but it's also diversifying and gaining in intensity and in regularity. That's the first point. The second point is that way too often we have an analysis by a number of think tanks and universities that is very much oriented toward the lethal or near lethal aspect of the incidents and disputes. But actually, also based on my research, these that we see on TV, the water cannoning, the ramming, and other graphics, things like that, only represent 23% of the total, which means that 80% of what is happening in these bodies of water most of the time do not appear on TV or in our medias. So it's where I'm reaching these 300. And when I started my list about 2.5 years ago, I had only 60, and I've been updating almost on a weekly basis this list of the phenomena of asymmetric warfare. And finally, I don't want to take too much of the time. We can elaborate further in the Q&A session. The conviction that I have and that I demonstrate through my research that the maritime domain awareness as a concept is maybe not the key, but one of the keys to a long-lasting, non-lethal, and collective deterrent for the area, for the countries in the region that are faced with this phenomena of aggression from the Chinese side. So today, well, there's a distance between the concept and the reality, that's for sure. And today, what we know is that there's quite a significant number of technical and technological bricks who do exist in the area, whether it's radars, boats, satellites, plane, and so on. But there's very much a too important diversity of countries of origin, diversity in terms of generation, and the diversity in terms of technology that makes it complicated for the countries and especially the maritime actors, Navy, Coast Guard, and fisheries to cooperate and share data, even though it would be in their primary interest to actually share this data and cooperate. So I will stay there for my brief introduction, and I'm happy to answer any question after.
Thank you very much. So now, very quickly, I will go give the floor to Dr. Roger Dou.
Hello, everyone. It's happy to be here to share some of my research with you. I'm not going to talk about high security, high politics today, but I would like to share some of my experience of working in India and talking about security and other issues with my Indian colleagues for the past, and how Taiwan and India's relationship and connections in maritime affairs actually can be established. So this actually is from one of the journal articles that I have written for the journal published by the National Maritime Foundation of India. And this is actually about the scientific cooperation between Taiwan and India and how we can go from there and spill over the effect to the geopolitical security and other implications. So the NIOT of India and NAMR of Taiwan has signed an MOU last year, November, in New Delhi to promote some scientific collaborations in the following areas. First, Taiwan and India are going to collaborate in buoy observation technology. And second, the two institutions are going to work on physical oceanographic processes. Third, they are going to share the weather data to track tropical cyclone in South China Sea and in the Indian Ocean. Finally, another big project is about coastal high-frequency radar and satellite remote sensing. So this thing seems to be technical, but I think it has a lot of potential for the two countries to establish some more solid collaborative relations with each other. Taiwan's OAC has been talking about new policies, especially when the chairperson Guan has become the head of the OAC. And under her leadership, the OAC have been talking about 3 securities, 三安, and 4 marine aspect, or 四海. 三安 includes 国安、治安 and 平安, which can be translated into national security, legal order and security, peace and public security. And 4 marine aspects includes marine conservation, marine pollution prevention, marine debris management, and marine industrial development. So all these has demonstrated a big framework, including policy, strategy, and science. So how this framework is going to work with India together, when it comes to collaborating among the 2 countries, actually between Taiwan and India, politics still plays a role. So an important thing is for us to bypass unnecessary political obstacles and reach to the collaborations directly. So India actually has a similar scientific platform called OSMART. Ocean Services Modeling Application Resources and Technology is more scientific. However, I think due to the duality of modern technology, actually that can promote the security collaboration between the 2 countries. For example, for the buoys collaboration, anchor and drifting buoys actually can detect the salinity and the hydrology aspects of the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. However, they can detect other things as well. And while Taiwan has been working on unmanned service vehicles, so as if you are following the news, actually you can see that Taiwan has been working on that because we want to counter the possible attacks from the sea by the PLAN. So this is some aspect that Taiwan and India can work together to, while they are exploring the potential of scientific detections, actually it can be used otherwise. And the Coast High Frequency Radar actually is designed to monitor nearshore currents and waves. However, it can monitor other things as well, for example, the coming objects. And finally, the AI imagery analysis actually is what Taiwan is good at. And as I know, the ITRI has been working on that. And this is something that we can share with our Indian counterparts. The importance of working through scientific platform is that it can be kept constant all the way. Because when we talk about politics, especially security-related politics, it is sensitive to the environmental changes. I mean, the environmental that I'm talking about is not the natural environment, but the political environment. The changing of some of you have mentioned the Donald Trump withdrawal from multilateral mechanisms. And Quad actually has been interfere with some other issues like tariffs. So how can we ensure constant collaboration is important? And I think science is very important for us to do that. And through science, actually, Taiwan and India can establish a platform that ensures constant contact and collaboration. For example, based on the MOU signed by the OAC and the Indian counterparts, the Ministry of Earth Sciences, actually we should aim at establish a working committee that includes different stakeholders of the Taiwanese side and the Indian side. And based on that, we can actually invite more countries, more stakeholders in this area or in the maritime affairs, like what we are doing today for the future, to further enhance and ensure that the collaboration will go on. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have Dr. Castro from Philippines, University of De La Salle. Now he is visiting in National Zhengzhou University. Please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. But before I start, let me correct. Yeah, I'm De Castro, not Castro. And I notice every time I'm in China, they would all refer to Castro. I said, I'm not related to Fidel. It's De Castro. That's why I had to make a point. Okay. So my talk tackles on how the Philippines, of course, is addressing the maritime security issue here in the Indo-Pacific region. But before I do my presentation, let me emphasize the fact that my presentation would focus on international law, specifically the July 12, 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling. And of course, next week, we will be commemorating that ruling that came out. Okay, so my presentation would be divided into two, how we have to look in terms of the situation and how the Philippines, of course, is trying to manage that situation. So in looking at the wider context, let me go into ancient Chinese philosophy, the notion of the yin and yang, the unity of the opposites, by looking at two dynamic forces that are, of course, propelling the dynamics here of security. Number one is something that was raised by my colleague from the Philippines, that is geopolitics. And of course, the opposite end is, of course, international law. So let me just start with, of course, geopolitics, which in a way represents an active, but of course, a more dynamic focus. Of course, when we talk about geopolitics, we go back to 19th century geopolitics, the emergence of that discipline, which focuses on how states basically acquire territory, create the notion of territoriality. So we start, of course, with Ratzel's notion of the state, but of course, later on, we go into the wider notion of, for example, a pivot of Halford Mackinder. Then we mentioned earlier by my good friend, Jay Torriela's notion of sea power. Then even advancing, when we talk about the importance of the island chain, we cannot help but discuss the idea of an American who developed the notion of the rimland. America is a maritime nation. It could not basically go to the continent. It had to basically settle the rimland. Voila, that's why you have the notion, of course, of the first island chain. That American power could not expand into the continent. It could only hold, of course, a speech by Dean Acheson before the Korean War, the first island chain notion, American power. But a more sinister notion of geopolitics, which I would apply later, of course, when we look at China, is something that developed, of course, by a German, who also, of course, has a notion of geopolitics, Karl Heitschofer, which developed the notion of Lebensraum. Great powers would have a living space, which I would apply later. Opposite, of course, of geopolitics, which represents, of course, expansion, territoriality, is international law. Of course, we go back to Hugo Grotius when you talk about international law of war and peace. And of course, we also credit Hugo Grotius with a concept on the law of the sea. The sea should be common to all. No country should ever territorialize the sea because it's a common heritage of humanity. We link it, of course, with the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, and later, of course, the Arbitral Tribunal ruling. Now let me go, of course, to the case of the Philippines. For so many years, the Philippines has been focused on internal security, but we have, of course, a wake-up call in the second decade of the 21st century when we saw Chinese maritime expansion. It was a shock for us. We thought for a while that, after the Cold War ended, China will be a benign power. Wow, what a rude awakening approach us. So the initial reaction, especially after the Scarborough Shoal incident in 2012, was to rely on international law. Without military capabilities, at that time, of course, the Obama administration was kind of dilly-dally on whether it would pursue that strategic rebalancing to the region. So we have to rely on international law. Of course, after we filed the case in July 2013, the ruling came out. It was a spectacular victory for international law. But unfortunately, of course, that that victory became an orphan because we have an administration that was really hell-bent on the peace in China. Fortunately, of course, we have a current administration that basically acknowledged the ruling and, of course, later on understand the ruling by itself as, derogatorily dismissed by the China as a piece of paper should have to be backed by military capability. So it's a rude awakening for us that we have to ship out, we have to develop a first time, we have a grand strategy, the notion of the comprehensive archipelagic defense concept. We have to build our Navy. We have to build our Coast Guard. We have to fill that gap in the southern part of the first island chain. That's, of course, the Philippines. And, of course, part of the CADC is that we need alliance with the United States, security partnership with Japan, Australia, and potentially, of course, Taiwan. Because we are on the same boat. We're part of the first island chain. Next to Taiwan, the Philippines is also, of course, a focal point of this expansion. We need, of course, ally support zone. We have to back the July 12, 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling with countervailing power against, of course, a country that has built the largest navy in the world and, of course, has the largest shipbuilding industry in the world. That, of course, scares the hell out of the Trump administration. If we cannot basically maintain that balance, that delicate balance of trying to balance Chinese maritime expansion with international law, backed up, of course, by the coalition of countries. We will see future generations of Filipinos, Taiwanese, and Japanese that will be deprived of the resources in our first island chain. And of course, Taiwan, the Philippines, and Japan would be islands of democracy in a sea dominated by an authoritarian China. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Now let's welcome Dr. Hu Chongping from Malaysia.
Thank you so much. So I'm very glad that the first panel actually focused on maritime domain awareness, because it is very crucial for us to enhance our resilience and also strengthen our capacity in that area. So firstly, we need more communication, whether it is transparent communication, vibrant communication, more dialogues. It is through this kind of exchanges that we get to know India and Taiwan have signed on new MOUs and to strengthen in terms of maritime security cooperation. And to the north of Taiwan, you have maritime nations like South Korea and also Japan. And to your south is Southeast Asian nations, a group of maritime nations, and of which we actually have very minimal regional cooperative mechanism when it comes to maritime. However, each country do have their own internal mechanism to manage our own maritime security challenges. Not every country has a way to detect which is what we call situational awareness. This is key to maritime domain awareness. So MDA means that not only the government, the military enforcement agency, but even your society, the people need to be aware of what's going on at the sea, near your coast, on the beach, because these are the area where the insecurity would happen, whether it would involve maritime trafficking, IUU fishing, and even incursion by foreign vessels and such. So of which I think we also need what we are doing right now is coordinated cooperation. So internally, interagency cooperation and coordination is crucial to the success of how are we going to defend our ocean and maritime domain. So for that, I'm very pleased to hear that Taiwan is going to release the Ocean White Paper. So I hope it is not too late for you to include the more enhanced maritime domain awareness in your white paper, of which, because from Malaysia's experience, we actually need to work together with the coastal residents and also fishing communities so that we know when the foreign vessels actually intrude into our waters. So it's not only about the whole of government approach, but also the whole of society approach to further enhance our maritime resilience. So with that, I would like to conclude that ocean security is a shared responsibility, and I hope to hear from more of you, and happy to discuss more ideas with the rest of the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now let's turn to Dr. Yuan Ba Chuang from Vietnam.
Yeah, because I have a very little time, I would like to make very quick comment about promoting the maritime security and how to confronting effectively China, that we can see the threats to not only Taiwan or Japan, and particularly Vietnam. Number one, the effective maritime security requires a multifaceted approach that integrates the Schengen international law, grounded in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and also, as my colleagues here, Dr. De Castro says, arbitral rulings. These foundations for the promoting and maintaining the rule-based order and maritime security. And also we need the advanced MDA, the new advanced cutting edge real-time MDA that need the cooperations. And Vietnam and other countries, particularly smaller countries in ASEAN, need the help and support from other countries to enhance the capacity in MDAs, maritime domains awareness. And how to do that, my colleagues, yes, Dr. Wu just said, that's not a job of the government, but also the job of the people, the society. Thirdly, is about how to multilateralize the relations, particularly smaller countries like Vietnam. We so far quite do well about the multilateralizing our relations. We strengthen ties with USA, India, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, ASEAN, EU, so far. So we try to enhance our internal power in order to counterbalance the external power like China. That's the first point. Second point I would like to make is that we are living in an unprecedented, uncertain, and unstable world. Countering region is just right if we, or it's the right time for us is to change our mind to countering region by applying grace measures. What's the meaning by grace? What does it mean by grace measure? I mean, in the world today, it's very hard for us to define clearly who is friend, who is enemy. Let me give an example. Japan, USA considered as allies, right? But just yesterday, Trump administration announced that they threatened to up the tariff to Japan to 35%. For Taiwan, in April, Trump administration said that they would like to impose a tariff to Taiwan 32%. How can be friends like this, right? So I mean, it's hard for us in the world today to distinguish who is right, is friends, who is right, is the enemy. For Vietnam, our eyes on China is that, yes, in the sea is the ocean, is the opponent. We do not think we should label someone or somebody as an enemy or friends in the world today. So we preferably label them as opponent or partner. For example, in terms of economic trade, Vietnam often consider China as a trade partner. But in terms of countering regional operation of China in the South China Sea, we label them as an opponent. So we think in the world today, if we label some country or someone purely as an enemy or purely as friend, I do not think we will have an effective measure to protect our national interests. That's my point, and based on the Vietnam's experiences. Third point, I would like to make that the maritime security is interconnected to other security, which is technology security, economic security, social security, diplomatic security. We are facing the security in all fronts. So we have to approach against the multifaceted approach or inclusive approach to deal with so many or multi-pillar approach security challenges like this. And to conclude my review, I would like to draw your attention to sayings that I love very much in the Godfather movie, which is keep your friend close, but keep your enemy closer. Thank you.
Thank you. So now welcome Dr. Sana Hashimi from India. She's now serving in Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation.
Thank you so much. I think my job is easier after such a stellar panel. But also I know I'm the only one who's standing between you and lunch, so I'll try to be brief. It's been such a pleasure to be called a friend of Taiwan Ocean Affair, and I'm returning for the second time. I'm an Indian, but I'm not going to talk about India. I'm an expert on Taiwan, but if you have any questions about how India is contributing to a rules-based order and ensuring maritime security in the Indo-Pacific, I'd be very happy to talk about it during Q&A. But I should commend Roger, who actually did a very good job in telling you all about how India and Taiwan should cooperate in the maritime domain. But I'm going to talk about China and Taiwan. That is my area of expertise. And I think someone said it before, we should call it what it is. That's Chinese aggression in the Taiwan Strait. It's China that is intimidating Taiwan militarily, economically. And why gray zone activities? We have been talking about it for such a long time and how Taiwan has been a victim of it. This has been a long-standing policy of China. But I feel that this is becoming more and more sophisticated with respect to Taiwan now. And of course, this is something that is just short of invasion, but not an invasion. There is this ambiguity, but China is doing what it wants to do. It wants to intimidate Taiwan. It wants to deter other partners to cooperate with Taiwan. And what it is also doing, it is kind of applying pressure, not just on Taiwan, but also countries that are now trying to notice Taiwan, countries that have been hesitant in the past, but now trying to be more cooperative with Taiwan. But of course, when they see that there are these gray zone activities, when China is being aggressive, that I feel that this is something that these countries are also taking into consideration. And of course, we have seen how China has been wearing down Taiwan. We have seen after Pelosi's visit in 2022, and I feel that this has become a new norm after 2022, and just not incursion in the ADIZ, but also in the naval domain. And also, it's to test the readiness of countries such as the US and Japan. So this is something that we have been talking about since at least 2022. And of course, we have seen within the tenure of the DPP, this is something that has become a new norm, a new type of status quo with respect to China-Taiwan relations and Taiwan status. What we have also seen is that China is unilaterally changing the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. Then it is also going to lead to strategic fatigue with respect to Taiwan, as well as countries who are willing to ensure freedom of navigation in the Indo-Pacific region. It also wants to consolidate its claim in the Taiwan Strait on Taiwan, but also we have seen that China has been consolidating its claim on the South China Sea. And also recently, I do a weekly column in an Indian publication print, and this week I wrote an article on G20, the appreciation for G20 stealth fighter in the Chinese discourse, which was not covered in the Western media, which was not covered in the English media. But then the news CCTV, there was a broadcast, and they covered it, they revealed, and it became a blown issue in the Chinese media, that how they scrambled foreign jet in the East China Sea. So it's just not about Taiwan, it's about all the maritime territorial disputes, as also the India-China border dispute, as well as with Bhutan. Then it's also to deter Taiwan, it's also to perhaps convince Taiwanese people that this is the fight that they should not have, it's not worth having. But then I feel that Taiwan's response has been robust. And oceans are not secure anymore, and you mentioned that how we have been in an unprecedented situation. But I do feel that Taiwan's response has been robust, has been very strong, and the very fact that we are today sitting at a Taiwan Ocean Affairs Council and discussing about security, it actually tells a lot about how Taiwan is focusing a lot on whole of society resilience. So this is just not the domain of MOFA, Ministry of Defense, or Mainland Affairs Council anymore. It's a joint effort, and OAC is also a department, a ministry that is taking an active role. So Taiwan is absolutely preparing for what is coming for Taiwan. It is investing in asymmetric capabilities, and how Taiwan is responding fast is something that we are also seeing. There's a lot of transparency, specifically after social media posts by Ministry of National Defense. We have seen at least since 2020, 2022, the number of posts. Now then these are the things that have been happening for a very, very long time. But now the world knows about Chinese aggression primarily because Taiwan is telling the world. Taiwan is setting the record straight and telling its own narrative, own story in its own word. So I feel there's of course a lot of disinformation that emanate from China, but public messaging is something that has been very much there from the Taiwanese side. I think there's a good or bad about it. The good part is that there's a lot of awareness about what China has been doing with respect to Taiwan, but the bad part is that nothing much is happening to ensure collective joint defense or deterrence. So how do we respond to it? When we talk about China's intimidation of Taiwan, especially in the maritime domain, we always rely on the US. We always say that US will come to Taiwan's rescue. But under Donald Trump tenure, I do not really, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of ambiguity, and the policy of strategic ambiguity has become much more ambiguous than ever before. So I do believe that we have been talking about MDA, but it should not just be a job of a few countries such as, and especially the panel, as in, look at it, there is a Taiwanese panelist, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, India. So I think these are the countries who should come together and perhaps at some level form some kind of working group at think tank level or at, and then I don't know where we can start from, but at least we need to start from this level, and perhaps we have to stop saying the US will do the job. And this is the region that we are living. This is the region where we are facing the China threat. So I think the countries who are a part of the region should very well take the lead role, should be at the front line. And I think we have to stop saying that, oh, we have this problem of lack of diplomatic relations with Taiwan. We either could talk about Taiwan's formal status, or we could talk about the like-mindedness of the countries and the threat, the common concern, shared threat that we have. If we have to ensure the rules-based order, we have to forget about the diplomatic relationship, the status of Taiwan. It's about securing the water, it's about securing the ocean, and it's about securing Taiwan as well. And it's just not about Taiwan being a democracy. It's also about securing their own interests. Taiwan under Chinese control is something that is not in the interest of any country. Be it the regional countries or the extra-regional countries. So I do believe there needs to be some legal clarity on what are gray zone activities and how do countries respond to it, because there is absolutely a risk of miscalculation, accidental escalation of the conflict that's been happening, and this is something that has been an objective for China. So I feel it's very important. I think something mentioned earlier, we have to identify that this is something that we have to address and we have to call out. And for effective collective deterrence, I do believe there needs to be more clarity, consistency, and cooperation among like-minded countries. And such an effort could not be established without Taiwan's exclusion. We have to include Taiwan because free and open Indo-Pacific rules-based order cannot exist without Taiwan. And if we exclude Taiwan, I think we have to also stop talking about the Indo-Pacific, the maritime security, and the cooperation among liberal democracies. And I think we have to really make it visible and make it obvious to China that gray zone activities are getting sophisticated, but this is something we all oppose. And I think there is much to work, there is much to collaborate on, and I feel that this is something that the like-minded countries and the countries that are being the target of Chinese aggression should come together and work together, but Taiwan should be very much a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Due to the time limit, so let me just quickly have a summary of the first round, and then we will give each presenter maybe 1 or 2 minutes to respond. Is that okay? So yeah, so we have mentioned several key topics here, and I do agree with Sana that we should have extended all of these topics for discussion in every levels, in every universities, institutions, so that we can discuss about how we deliver the challenges. And the most important challenge is the gray zone activities and all of the military expansions from China. And also we are facing fluctuated the US foreign policy as well. But right now we are all of our countries are in the front line of the China's expansion. So that is maybe the first priority of each country. And the second one is how to raise people's awareness. So that is for more like the public opinions issue here. So for most of people, China hasn't been using the military coercion directly to influence the people's daily life. However, it's now more and more challenge and more pressures from China, so that it is also very important to tell the people. And then thirdly is how the governments react to China. And then Dr. Yuan mentions that it is not very good to label China as an enemy or something. I think Taiwan faces a difficulty here because China defined Taiwan as an enemy. Okay, so according to their anti-secession law. So and also China also has a territorial ambition on Taiwan. but maybe not for the Southeast Asian countries. So Taiwan is facing more difficult of dealing with this issue. And it is very difficult for every country because every country still have a very close economic ties with China. So we face a lot of pressures when we're dealing with the China issue. So that is very important for every country as well. And the first one of the elements is the international law. I think it's also very difficult for Taiwan to deal with this issue. So if you see our foreign ministry's website, then you can see that all of the statements on South China Sea is still unchanged. Because I guess it is because our government do not know how to deal with this issue. And also in the tribunal case there, it also has some negative impact for the status of the two biggest islands in the South China Sea. It's Pratas and Ituaba, the Dongsha and Taiping, which are controlled by Taiwan right now. And because I think we just do not know how to deal with that. But I do think that international law is very important because we should maintain the so-called rule-based international order. And now we have a challenger for that. And yes, I think for Taiwan, which is isolated by China internationally, we should also know how to respond and to incorporate into this international law system. So it's a very urgent issue for Taiwanese government as well. And finally, we also mentioned that there are already some of the cooperative mechanisms there. We should, if we have more time, I would like to ask the question about, so how do this cooperation can expand? So for example, it's very difficult for Taiwan to establish official ties or official relationship with many institutions because we will see a lot of pressures from China. So for example, Dr. Liu mentions some of the cooperation. Is that track 2 or track 1 or check 1.5, something like that. So maybe it is also difficult, a lot of difficulty there. So so that is all of the key elements there. So now can we invite each speaker to have maybe 1 minute of, only one, sorry for that. So 1 minute of the response. Is Dr. Brandon still online?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm with you. So I will take this first time. I will not address international law aspect. I think Dr. Renato De Castro would be much more versed in the topic, but I would like to make a contribution about the education on maritime issues. I've been in Asia for 3.5 years, and something that struck me is that different countries will have either low or almost no education to the maritime domain at all. And I think it's a very untapped domain and area. I've been in Vietnam, I've been in the Philippines, in Malaysia, and some countries have really beautiful maritime museums and different means of educating the public and the general public, such as YouTube content, articles, publications, dedicated websites. And in that regard, by the way, the Philippines has been quite active over the past years. You have this website called Not 1 Inch. You start to have comic books for the kids about maritime issues and so on. And if you go in other countries, there will be interesting initiative. Just very recently, I was in Japan and I visited the National Museum for National Fundamentals. And I felt that was a very interesting approach to the topic. But in general, I feel the governments that are faced with asymmetric warfare phenomena from the side of China would greatly benefit from educating the public and multiplying the sources of information for people to not just see the graphic images on TV for the ramming and water cannoning or the other incidents of that kind, but having a comprehensive understanding of the topics. And I mentioned in my initial statement that much too often media and think tank will only focus on the maritime engagement at sea between boats and so on. And they will consider the strategic aspect or the maritime security aspect to the dispute, but you also have economic, political, societal, sovereignty, and even environmental impact. And that in particular, in my mind at least, is not addressed enough. So I would very much encourage the government of the area, including Taiwan, to be much more active on the education and knowledge aspect.
Thank you very much. I think it's very, very early in your time zone, right? So thank you very much for joining us. Then Dr. Liu, please.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chen. Well, I would like to share my experience of some difficulties when it comes to collaboration between India and Taiwan. Is that usually people make a lot of splashes, and we like to talk about great things. However, when it comes to execution and continuity of the policy, actually that will be another thing. And China is always there. So, well, you can see that recently Quad has been challenged, and Quad has having a headwind, especially when Donald Trump has his tariff scheme against his own allies. So I think it's important that especially between Taiwan and India to have a constant platform being established so that we can continue talking on different things. And what is important is that we have to make each and every party to feel that they are benefiting from this participation, and there are reasons for them to continue this collaboration. And science actually brings a very important reason of being for India to be there. If you check the examples of the US-India collaboration based on the 2023 two statements made by the former President Joe Biden and Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, you will see that they focus on the practical things, AI, semiconductor, collaborations in defense industries, and the setup of the bases in different countries. So that actually brings jobs, technology, and all this tangible benefit that India can feel. So I think to keep India in the game, that's very important if we can collaborate with them in the scientific realm, and actually people can establish some kind of consensus, not only in the general public, but especially important among the scientific communities. I think that will be important because, and based on the duality of the modern technologies, actually we can create some kind of spillover to security issues, and we can make this kind of transition more naturally than announce something abruptly. Thank you.
Thank you. So Professor Castro.
2 points I would like to raise. Number one is when you talk about Taiwan's dilemma after the July 12, 2016 arbitral ruling came out. Well, during that time when we filed the case, Taiwan was under President Ma, under the Kuomintang, so Taiwan was really put on the spot. But I think things have changed. So this has to do, of course, every time the Chinese would talk about the 9-dash line, they always go back to in 1946, Kuomintang. So probably it's time for Taiwan to basically disown the Chinese claim that their 9-dash line claim is linked with what Taiwan came out with, when the Republic of China came out with in 1946. And probably right now, of course, is the fact that Taiwan doesn't claim the entire, South China Sea. It's more defined. It's time for us to talk. Of course, that is easier said than done. Second point I would like to raise is about China's goal and, of course, the notion of 11 strong. China's goal for Taiwan is really straight-cut conquest, but the question is about Southeast Asia. This is where I basically would tell my other Southeast Asian colleagues, we cannot simply hedge, thinking that we could always sit on the fence, simply focusing on China's economic dynamism. We also have to look at the entire picture. China aims to transform Southeast Asia into its living space, 11 strong, the same way as what Germany tried to do with the, Central and Southern Europe and, of course, the Soviet Union. That is China's goal. For us, in the case of the Philippines, we have basically said, no, we don't want to be part of this Chinese design 11 strong. For other Southeast Asian countries, that's for you to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Hu, please.
So on that note, I think not every country will adopt the transparency initiative, but we do it assertively in our own way. For example, Malaysia, even South Korea, we built an oil rig platform in area where China claimed and disputed. So, but that but yet we still able to continue our oil and gas exploration and related activities. So I think that requires a kind of understanding from the Prime Minister or Presidential Office, National Security Council, in the case of Taiwan, Ocean Affairs Council, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and also your academic and scientific community. Everyone needs to be in the know what is the general direction of the country. So that's why Ocean White Paper is very important, and that is the general policy guidance for you to implement maritime domain awareness. So you raised the first question about education. Of course, does Taiwanese experts and academics convey that idea to your students, to your people, so and convey it to the public via media? So these are all very important works that we all need to do together. So of course, outreach by the relevant maritime agencies to the coastal communities is very, very important. Whether you are doing marine scientific research, whether you are trying to protect the marine environment. So all of this require cooperation from the local people. So I think that is very clear. Second is about sending up to coercion. So not only we face different types of and different degree of aggression from China, we also have our own strategy to cope with it. For example, not often being reported in the news is that Malaysia actually strengthened our military capacity. So we come up with what we call concentric deterrence. So nowadays, deterrence is not only something taken care by the military or the armed forces, but also by the people. So we conduct seabed exploration. We lay our pipeline. So subsea cable becomes such an important topic for maritime domain as well, because this is where, to what extent the government would actually try to take responsibilities, because right now it is mostly done by the private corporation. And China Telecom is actually part of many of our joint subsea cables, including Taiwan and also Southeast Asia, Japan. So Japan Southeast Asia cable has experienced several disruptions as well. And for this, we actually try to convince the government to work together with the private sector to try to resolve this issue. So I think with that, we need to have heightened maritime domain awareness in this regard. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Yuan, please.
I would like to spend 1 minute to talk to any Chinese officer out there, or Chinese spy out there, or anyone who take Chinese government money directly or indirectly out there, because you know that this will be very important, and there should have been 2 Vietnamese scholars here. But one of my colleagues has to say she cannot come because of some sensitive issue at the last minute. So I would like to say that we know for sure your intention. Okay, we know for sure what you want to do with Vietnamese government or Vietnamese people in the South China Sea or East China Sea. Chinese government, you want to dominate the sea. You want to own the fish. You want to take our oils and gas in the South China Sea. We know for sure, 100%. However, we're willing to work with you as long as you express your responsible manner as a major power, as a major brother. I will call yourself like this. So we're willing to work with you if you prove yourself like this. And last but not least, I would like to talk and express that we Vietnamese people, as Vietnamese scholar, we'd like to work with Taiwanese scholar, Taiwanese people. We welcome you to come to Vietnam to make more projects, more researches, more cultural exchange. We'd like to strengthen ties to Taiwan in any much as possible, particularly in search and rescue, particularly in research. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Hashmi, please.
Thank you. I think there's nothing gray about Chinese gray zone activities. It's as black and white as it could get. And I think what China wants a lot of countries to do is just to accommodate and don't resist. And when we talk about Taiwan, I just don't think that it is a geopolitical flashpoint anymore. It's also a lab for to China to test the extent of its maritime coercion. So I think this is something that we have to accept, and we have to keep talking about it. And also we have to remember, it's Taiwan today, tomorrow it will be other countries. That's former Foreign Minister Joseph Wu said that it's Taiwan today, but then China is not going to stop at Taiwan. And of course, countries such as Philippines, Vietnam, India, we need to really be very vigilant of Chinese actions. But then here I have a recommendation. I think what we need to do is we need to interact with each other more. And this is a very new development. This is just a decade-old development that Taiwan is being talked about more seriously, more carefully, and perhaps more sincerely. But then what we have done at Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation for the very first time, we established 3 years ago track 1.5 dialogue between India and Taiwan, and we get policymakers, industry people, people from all walks of life, and also produce annual report, and we make domain experts write about India and Taiwan. Perhaps a suggestion for Ocean Affairs Council, they could also have a gray zone annual dialogue with countries from the region to just talk about what are the gray zone activities that have been targeted at the regional countries and what are the solutions. So regional problems demand regional solutions. And I think where we could start from is we should start talking to each other and we should start having dialogues like these. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think all of these inputs are very valuable for not only for Taiwan, but also for all of our neighboring and partnership countries. So now let's conclude this session, and thank you, everyone, for the participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chen, for moderating this dialogue, and thank you to all panelists for your participation. This is the end of the expert dialogue. So the next speech will begin at 1:30. Now is lunchtime. For the speakers, moderators, and panelists and ambassadors, please follow our staff to the restaurant on the first floor for lunch. For all the other guests and participants, please remain seated for further instructions. Thank you. 现在请所有主持人、与谈人和讲者代表们跟随工作人员至1楼餐厅用餐，其余来宾请稍后，我们将会有工作人员带您用餐。谢谢。